Welcome, friends, to another exciting episode of A VGM Journey. And I'm your host, The Messenger. The track that we're playing in today's show is The Beach from Puggsy, and it was composed by Matt Furniss. Once again, we got another fun show filled with some pretty amazing tracks, and I say let's get right into it. This next track I think is pretty great. It is The Sky from The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, and it was composed by Hajime Wakai, Shiho Fujii, Mahito Yokota, and Takeshi Hama. That track that you just listened to, that was The Sky from The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, and it was composed by Hajime Wakai, Shiho Fujii, Mahito Yokota, and Takeshi Hama. With the recent release of Skyward Sword HD, I decided to check out the game again. And to be honest, I really did not like the original Wii release of the game. And just like a lot of other people, I mainly disliked it for the motion controls. It was a design decision that I just didn't find all that appealing. And I only played through just a short bit of the game before I just gave up on it. But I decided to check out the HD version mainly because they updated the controls and even had button controls, which I'm glad to say that even though it's not perfect, I think it's a huge improvement, and I'm actually having more fun, a lot more fun, playing the game than I did 10 years ago. And I didn't realize how amazing the soundtrack is. Like, I knew it was good, but just playing the first couple hours of it, so I'm pretty much up to the point that I originally stopped at. And the music was so good, including this track. And I think I was even having a little bit of a difficult time trying to pick a track from that game for this. I could have picked quite a handful of other tracks. It would have still been just as good. I think I want to move on to the next track, which is going to be our only request for the week, and this is coming from Bedroth. He wanted me to play The Cursed Beauty from the game The Legend of Xanadu, Kaze no Densetsu Xanadu, and it was composed by Mieko Ishikawa, Naoki Kaneda, Masaru Nakajima, Hirofumi Matsuoka, Atsushi Shirakawa, and Takahiro Tsunashima. That track that you just listened to, that was The Cursed Beauty from the game The Legend of Xanadu, Kaze no Densetsu Xanadu. And that was composed by quite a handful of composers, which I'm pretty sure not all of them did it, but I'm just going to credit them as Falcom Sound Team JDK. And that was also requested by Bedroth, so thank you Bedroth for that request. I recently put a post up in the VGM Podcast Fans group on Facebook, just looking for some new requests. And after going a little back and forth with Bedroth, which he was suggesting some things from before, or stuff that I've played on the show before, and we settled on to this track. And I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, all the Falcom Sound Team JDK stuff is pretty good. I mean, a lot of their stuff on the Ease series is really fantastic stuff, but I wasn't sure what I was getting into with this track, and I gotta say, it was really good. And I know that Jason Areola, the host of Rock Out With Your Card Out, he's a huge fan of these Falcom tracks. I mean, he has dedicated episodes and episodes of his show to this stuff. And I'm sure that he's played this track on his show before. Personally, I think it's some of the most underrated VGM around. As it seems like not enough people listen to it, and the people that do listen to it, I mean, they highly, highly praise these soundtracks. And this won't be the last that we hear of the Falcom Sound Team JDK on this show. There will be plenty more in the future. So, once again, Bedroth, thank you for that track. I'm gonna move on to something a bit random, a bit new for the show, and I wanted to play something from Bubble Ghost. This is ending / game over / name entry, and it was composed by Hitoshi Sakimoto. That track that you just listened to, that was ending / game over / name entry from the game Bubble Ghost. It was composed by Hitoshi Sakimoto. I wanted to bring something different and new to the show, so I went out looking for random NES, Genesis, Game Boy games, and I just happened to come across this game, and I have to say, I find it pretty charming. And what you do in Bubble Ghost is that you play as a ghost who has to blow a bubble from one side of the screen to another. It's a puzzle game. and you're trying to make sure that the bubble doesn't get popped. So there would be a lot of sharp obstacles that would try to pop the bubble. And it's a pretty simple game, and you're not just blowing the bubbles. Sometimes you can interact with things. Like on this one level, there's a snake who's in your way, and you gotta fly over to this horn and blow the horn, and the snake will fall asleep. It's just silly little charming stuff. And the soundtrack, there's not a lot of songs in it. So all there is the title theme, just gameplay music, and then this track that I just played. And it's all pretty good stuff. So I might play the other two tracks in a future episode. And it seems like it's not a very long game to play through, so it might be a good sit down and play for an afternoon type of game. So I definitely recommend, check out Bubble Ghost. This next track, I think it's a pretty cool one. This is coming from Ace Attorney Investigation, Miles Edgeworth. This is Crisis of Fate, and it was composed by Noriyuki Iwadari and Yasuko Yamada. Track that you just listened to, that was Crisis of Fate from the game Ace Attorney Investigation, Miles Edgeworth, and it was composed by Noriyuki Iwadari and Yusuko Yamada. And that's going to just about do it for the show this week. If you like what you've been listening to, have your friends check out the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever podcatching service that you can think of. I'm more than likely going to be on there. You can email the show at vgmjourney@yahoo.com, and you could also check us out on Twitter at vgmjourney. We also have a Discord server for the show, which I will provide a link for that in the show notes, where you can hang out with your fellow VGM journeymen and talk about games, music, and even look at some cool art. We've also started a Patreon for the show, which I will also provide a link for that in the show notes. And if you subscribe to the $3 tier, you'll gain access to a monthly Patreon-only bonus show called a VGM Side Quest, which I host with my fiancée Carly. And at the $5 tier, you will get a special Patreon shout-out on the show, just like the following people: John Harrington, John Regan, David Fleming, and Jesse Moore of Game That Tune. So Thank you guys for your pledges. I'm going to play things out with one more song, and it's a really cool unused track. This is coming from Echo the Dolphin, Defender of the Future. The track is The Tick, and it was composed by Tim Fallon. Have a good week, everyone.